The CAGED system is one of those things that everyone says you have to learn. It'll unlock the entire fretboard, so you take the time to learn it. But all you get from it is some new way to play chords you already knew, most of which are too much of a stretch to ever actually even use. Well, great players know that it is so much more than that. So let's look at how you really should be using CAGED to unlock the fretboard. Really quick, let's speedrun what the CAGED system actually is, just so we're all on the same page. CAGED is an acronym representing all 5 fundamental chord shapes: the C shape, the A shape, the G shape, the E shape, and the D shape. Every chord you play is some variation or modification of these 5 shapes. And you probably already use CAGED all the time whenever you play bar chords, because all of these are E shapes and A shapes. Now this also applies to minor too. There's a C minor shape, an A minor shape, a G minor shape, an E minor shape, and a D minor shape. So what this means is you can use these C, A, G, E, D major and minor shapes to play any major or minor chord. Great! This is usually where the CAGED system stops for most people. But knowing you can play a D major chord like this probably isn't the most useful information. We already know a handful of much easier ways to play that chord already, like this, this, or this. So let's get into what the CAGED system really excels at: a high visibility fretboard navigation system. It breaks the fretboard up into these clear, recognizable landmarks to guide you on your way. And there are actually 2 primary ways we can do this: the vertical CAGED system and the horizontal CAGED system. I want to start with the vertical CAGED system, which is where we utilize CAGED to play every chord in a key within just one position on the fretboard. And this isn't exactly a rhythm guitar thing. You're not learning chords to play the full shapes. We're learning them so we can visualize them as we play. This is an amazing tool for songwriting, improvising, coming up with your own riffs, or quickly locating triads. So let's look at the key of C major in 2 different positions, and we'll use CAGED shapes to play every chord in the key. I usually like to start with the most common scale position out there. And right here within this shape, I can find all 7 diatonic chords in the key of C major. I've got a C major chord using a G shape. I've got a D minor chord using an A minor shape. I've got an E minor chord using a C minor shape. I've got an F major chord using a C shape. I've got a G major chord using a D shape. Then I've got an A minor chord using an E minor shape. And then finally, I've got a B diminished. This is actually a B minor 7 flat 5, but that's not important. It represents that B diminished triad, and that's using this modified E minor shape. Just like that. And the value of this is that when you're playing something in this scale position, every chord in the key is readily available for you. You want to hit some chord tones during your solo? Well, you know exactly where they are. Want to mix in a few triads? Just play a little piece of a chord. Very handy, and this exists in every position on the fretboard. So let me show you another one. Position 2 is right next door here. And I can once again use CAGED shapes to play all 7 of my chords using nothing but the notes in this shape. We've got our C major using an E shape. We've got our D minor using a G minor shape this time. We've got our E minor using an A minor shape. We've got our F major using an A shape. Then we've got our G major using a C shape. And then now we've got our A minor, this time using a D minor shape. Then finally, we've got that B diminished again, and luckily for us, we can use the exact same shape because it also fits in this position. There we go. Very powerful stuff. Now, this is just one way of actually putting CAGED to work. The other way is through the horizontal CAGED system, and this one is really cool. So, if the vertical CAGED system is all the chords in one position, the horizontal CAGED system is one chord in all the positions. So let's take the C major chord. Well, we know that we can use all the CAGED shapes to play a C major chord a bunch of different ways. The first one is obvious, a C major chord using the C shape. We can also play a C major chord using an A shape, a C major chord using a G shape, a C major chord using an E shape, and a C major chord using a D shape. And if you look closely, you'll see that they're all connected to one another, like one big long C major chord. That's why CAGED, C-A-G-E-D, is in that order, because they always follow that pattern. And no matter which chord you picked, you could create this fretboard long connected shape using the CAGED shapes. Let's go with a minor chord this time, A minor. We'd start with an A shape for the A minor chord all the way down here. And then what's next in the CAGED sequence? G. So we can throw a connected A minor chord using the G minor shape here. Then E. So here we've got an A minor using an E shape. Then an A minor chord using the D shape. And again, it's connected to the previous one. After D, we go all the way back around to C. So there is an A minor chord using a C shape as well. And that brings us all the way back around to where we started with our A shape again for the A minor. And we could just keep on going and cover the whole fretboard. Now, where this really gets awesome is when we bring in the 5 scale positions. You might be used to calling them the 5 pentatonic positions, but it applies to all the vertical scales. There are 5 repeating positions that connect to one another. And how many letters in CAGED are there? 5. Can you kind of see where we're headed? Each chord can represent a position. So check this out. We're in the key of C major, right? So let's pull out all 5 positions of the C major scale. It looks a little scary. Now let's switch to our connected C major chord using CAGED. Much easier to quickly identify what you're looking at. But what happens when we overlay our 5 positions? We end up with one shape that represents each scale position. It's like a little skeleton living inside each pattern. And what this does is give us a clear landmark for each position. We now have a C position, an A position, a G position, an E position, and a D position. And I know for me, these kinds of landmarks really help me quickly orient myself, especially when improvising or soloing. And it all works in every key, by the way. All shapes, patterns, and systems work the same. You just shift everything up or down the fretboard to fit your new key. So what I've done is create a completely free fretboard cheat sheet booklet for you guys. And in there, you'll find all the diagrams from this lesson with everything broken down, along with a bunch of other essential fretboard navigation stuff for you to easily reference whenever you want. Again, it's completely free, and you can grab that right now by following the link at the top of the video description. So from here, I'd recommend checking out this lesson on how CAGED and triads are connected. It'll really keep the ball rolling and allow you to squeeze even more value out of what you've just learned. Don't forget to grab that free resource down in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.